I ain't leaving him to die out there. Martha wouldn't have it, and neither will I. Those were the words Arthur Pendleton muttered through chattering teeth as he dragged the seventh leather-clad body across his frozen yard. His hands, gnarled and shaking, gripped the man's jacket collar while snow pelted his weathered face. Each step felt like his last. The wind screamed. The body in his grip was dead weight. And somewhere in the darkness behind him, at least a dozen more bikers lay scattered across his property like broken toys, their motorcycles buried in snowdrifts, their faces blue. If you want to see how an 80-year-old farmer with nothing left to lose became a legend among the most feared motorcycle gang in America, hit that subscribe button right now. Stay with me until the very end of this story and drop a comment telling me what city you are watching from. I want to see how far Arthur's story can travel. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Arthur's boots crunched through ice as he hauled the biker toward his barn. The man's head lolled back, frost clinging to his beard. Arthur couldn't feel his fingers anymore. Didn't matter. He'd already pulled 6 men to safety and he wasn't stopping now. Come on, son. Arthur wheezed, his breath coming out in ragged clouds. Just a little further. The barn door hung crooked on its hinges. Arthur kicked it open with his boot and dragged the biker inside, laying him next to the others. 6 bodies, maybe 7 now. He'd lost count. All of them wearing the same patch on their backs. Hell's Angels Montana chapter. The skull with wings seemed to mock him in the flickering lantern light. Arthur straightened up, his spine cracking like dried timber. His vision blurred. The barn spun. He grabbed the wall to steady himself. No time for that, he muttered. No time. He turned back toward the door. The blizzard had swallowed his farm whole. Somewhere out there, more men were dying. He'd seen at least 20 motorcycles when they'd crashed through his fence line, their engines roaring before the storm took them down one by one. 20 bikes meant 20 men, maybe more. Arthur stepped back into the storm. The cold hit him like a hammer. His coat, thin and patched, did nothing. The wind tore at his face, his ears, his hands. He'd lost his gloves somewhere between the 3rd and 4th biker. Didn't remember where. Where are you, Ian? Arthur called out, his voice swallowed by the wind. Call out if you can hear me. Nothing. Just the howl of the storm and the creak of frozen tree branches snapping under the weight of ice. Arthur stumbled forward, his boots sinking into snow up to his knees. His farm, the same 200 acres he'd worked for 60 years, was unrecognizable. The fields were white oceans. The fence posts were buried. The old equipment shed had collapsed under the snow's weight. His foot hit something solid. Arthur dropped to his knees and started digging with his bare hands. Ice bit into his skin, his fingers scraped against leather. He dug faster, his heart hammering, until he uncovered a face young, maybe 30 lips. Purple, eyes closed. Hey! Arthur slapped the man's cheek. Hey, wake up! Nothing. Arthur pressed his ear to the man's chest. They're faint, but they're a heartbeat. Thank God! Arthur breathed. He grabbed the man under the armpits and started dragging him back toward the barn. Every muscle in his body screamed. His left knee, the one he'd blown out on a tractor 40 years ago, felt like someone was driving a spike through it. But he kept moving. The barn door appeared through the snow like a miracle. Arthur hauled the man inside and laid him next to the others. 8 now. 8 men who would have been corpses if he hadn't found them. Arthur grabbed a stack of old horse blankets from the corner and started covering the bikers. Their skin was ice. Some of them weren't breathing right, short, shallow gasps that didn't sound human. One man's lips were moving, but no sound came out. Hang on, Arthur said, tucking blankets around them. Just hang on. He lit 2 more kerosene lanterns and placed them near the bodies for warmth. It wasn't much. The barn was drafty, half the roof was missing shingles, and the walls had gaps wide enough to see through, but it was better than freezing to death in the snow. Arthur looked at the men, really looked at them. Leather jackets covered in patches, tattoos snaking up their necks, chain studs boots that could kick through a door. These were the kind of men people crossed the street to avoid, the kind of men who made headlines when they rolled into small towns. And here they were, helpless as newborns. What were you boys thinking? Arthur muttered, shaking his head. Riding in this weather. Damn fools. One of the bikers groaned. His eyes fluttered open, pale blue, bloodshot, confused. He tried to sit up, but his body wouldn't cooperate. Easy, Arthur said, placing a hand on the man's shoulder. Don't move yet. You're frozen half to death." The biker's lips moved. His voice came out as a croak. Where am I? "My barn. Name's Arthur Pendleton. This is my farm, or what's left of it." The biker's eyes focused on Arthur's face. Recognition flickered there, then confusion. "You pulled us out. Found 8 of you so far. There's more out there. I'm going back." "You're gonna..." The biker coughed, his whole body shaking. "You're gonna kill yourself, old man." "Probably," Arthur said. He grabbed his coat, soaked through, now almost useless, and headed for the door. "Wait," the biker croaked. Why you doing this?" Arthur stopped. He turned back his hand on the doorframe. "Because my wife Martha always said a man's measure ain't in what he has, it's in what he's willing to give. And I ain't got much left, son, but I got this." He walked back into the storm. The world had turned white. Arthur couldn't see 5 feet ahead. He moved slowly, methodically, sweeping his arms through the snow like he was searching for a lost calf. His hands had gone numb. He couldn't tell anymore if he was touching ice or skin. Something dark jutted out of a snowdrift. A motorcycle, its chrome handlebars glinting in the faint moonlight that managed to break through the clouds. Arthur dug around it, searching for a body. There, a boot. Arthur grabbed it and pulled. The snow gave way, revealing a man twice his size, unconscious, his face buried in powder. Arthur hooked his hands under the man's arms and pulled with everything he had. The man didn't budge. Arthur tried again. His boots slipped on ice. He fell backward, landing hard on his tailbone. Pain shot up his spine. "Come on, Arthur," he growled at himself. Get up, get up." He rolled onto his hands and knees, gasping. His vision was going gray at the edges. His heart was beating too fast, skipping rhythms it shouldn't skip. He knew that feeling, knew what it meant. "Not yet," he whispered. "Not yet, Martha. I ain't done." He grabbed the man again. This time he wedged his shoulder under the biker's chest and used his legs, his old worn-out legs that had carried him through 6 decades of farm work, and lifted. The man came up an inch, then another. Arthur shuffled backward, dragging the massive body through the snow. 10 feet, 20. The barn was somewhere ahead. He knew it was, but he couldn't see it anymore. Everything was white and cold and endless. Arthur's boot caught on something. He went down hard, the biker landing on top of him. The weight crushed the air from his lungs. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. This is it, he thought. This is how it ends. Crushed under a stranger in my own yard. Then he heard it, a voice faint but clear. "Old man, where are you? Titoin?" Arthur tried to shout, but his lungs wouldn't work. He managed a wheeze. "I hear you keep making noise." Arthur slapped his hand against the frozen ground. Once, twice, 3 times. Footsteps crunched through snow. A figure appeared above him. The biker from the barn, the one with the pale blue eyes wrapped in a horse blanket, moving like every step hurt. "Jesus," the biker said. He grabbed his unconscious brother and hauled him off Arthur. Then he reached down and pulled Arthur to his feet. "You're crazy, you know that." Arthur coughed, sucking in air. "Yeah, I've been told." Together they dragged the unconscious biker back to the barn. The blue-eyed biker Arthur still didn't know his name was stronger, even half frozen. They made it in half the time. Inside, more men were stirring. 3 of them were sitting up now, wrapped in blankets, their faces pale but alive. They watched in silence as Arthur and the blue-eyed biker laid their brother down. "How many more?" one of them asked. His voice was rough, like gravel in a blender. "I counted 20 bikes," Arthur said. "Got 9 of you in here, that's 11 still out there." "We gotta go get 'em," the gravel-voiced biker said, trying to stand. His legs buckled. He went down hard. "You ain't going anywhere," Arthur said. "You can barely stand." "They're my brothers," the man growled. "I ain't leaving 'em to die." "Neither am I." Arthur grabbed another lantern. "But you're gonna stay here and keep these men warm. I'll bring the others." "You'll die out there, old man." Arthur looked at him, really looked at him, saw the fear in the man's eyes, not fear for himself, fear for his brothers, fear for Arthur. "Maybe," Arthur said, "but I'm going anyway." He walked back into the blizzard. This time the blue-eyed biker followed him. "What's your name, son?" Arthur asked as they trudged through the snow. "Jace," the biker said. "Jace Mallory." "Well, Jace Mallory, you should be in that barn getting warm." Yeah, well, you should be in a hospital and here we are. Arthur almost smiled. Fair point. They found three more bikers together clustered near an overturned motorcycle. All three were unconscious, their bodies tangled together like they'd tried to huddle for warmth. Arthur and Jace worked in silence, dragging them one by one back to the barn. 12 now, 8 more to go. The storm was getting worse. The wind had picked up, turning the snow into horizontal needles that cut through clothing like knives. Arthur's face was raw. His lips were cracked and bleeding. He couldn't feel his feet anymore. There, Jace shouted, pointing. A motorcycle was wedged against Arthur's old grain silo. Beside it, two bodies lay motionless in the snow. They ran, while Arthur stumbled and Jace limped, but they moved as fast as they could. The first biker was young, couldn't have been more than 25, with a baby face that made Arthur's chest tighten. The second was older, probably in his 50s, with gray in his beard and scars crisscrossing his knuckles. This one's breathing, Jace said, checking the younger biker. Barely. Arthur pressed his fingers to the older man's neck. No pulse. He tried again, moving his fingers, searching for any sign of life. Nothing. Jace, Arthur said quietly, this one's gone. Jace's face went hard. No, he ain't. Check again. Son, I'm sorry, but check again. Jace grabbed the older biker and started shaking him. Come on, Tank, wake up, you stubborn son of a... Arthur pulled Jace away. He's gone. We gotta focus on the ones we can still save. Jace's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like a little boy who'd lost his father. Then he sucked in a breath, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and nodded. Okay, he said. Okay, let's get the kid inside. They carried the young biker back to the barn, leaving Tank's body in the snow. Arthur hated it, hated leaving any man alone in the cold, but there was no choice. The living needed them more. 13 saved, 1 dead, 7 more out there. In the barn, the situation had improved slightly. More men were awake now, 5 or 6 of them, huddled around the lanterns, rubbing their hands together, trying to get blood flowing again. They looked up when Arthur and Jace entered with the unconscious young biker. That's Rookie, one of them said, rushing over. He... alive, Jace said. Barely. We need to warm him up fast. They stripped off Rookie's wet jacket and wrapped him in every blanket they could find. Someone, a biker with a scar running down his cheek, started rubbing Rookie's hands and feet, trying to restore circulation. Arthur collapsed against the wall, his legs finally giving out. He slid down until he was sitting on the cold floor, his chest heaving. How many left? Scarface asked. 7, Arthur wheezed. Maybe more. I lost count. We'll help, Scarface said. Everyone who can walk, we're going out. 4 bikers stood up. They were shaky, weak, but standing. Arthur shook his head. You boys aren't in any shape. Neither are you, old man, Scarface said. But you're still going, ain't you? Arthur couldn't argue with that. They went out together, 6 men moving through the storm like ghosts. Arthur led them to the north field, where he'd seen the most bikes go down. The snow was deeper here, past their waists in some places. They spread out, calling into the wind. Over here, someone shouted. They converged on the voice. One of the bikers had found 2 men pinned under a motorcycle. The bike's weight had kept them from freezing completely, but they were in bad shape. Their skin was gray, their breathing shallow. It took all 6 of them to lift the motorcycle. They dragged the men free and carried them back to the barn. 15 saved, 1 dead, 5 more out there. The temperature was dropping. Arthur could feel it in his bones. The storm wasn't letting up. If anything, it was getting stronger. They had maybe an hour left before the cold became lethal for everyone, not just the men still outside. We need to split up, Jace said. Cover more ground. No, Arthur said. We stay together. Man gets separated in this, he's as good as dead. Then we're running out of time. I know. They pushed deeper into the fields. Arthur's farm stretched 200 acres, most of it open land, with scattered equipment and old structures. The bikers could be anywhere. Could be buried under snow, invisible, unreachable. There's one, a biker pointed toward Arthur's collapsed equipment shed. They ran. Through the snow, through the wind, through the pain that screamed in every joint and muscle. The shed had caved in its roof, crushed by the weight of ice and snow. Underneath, they could see a hand sticking out. Dig, Arthur commanded. They dug with their hands, with pieces of wood, with anything they could find. The snow was packed tight, frozen solid in places. Arthur's fingers were bleeding, the skin torn away, but he kept digging. They uncovered a man, then another, then a third, all of them piled together under the collapsed roof using each other's body heat to survive. They're alive, Jace said, checking pulses. All three, they're alive. They carried them back to the barn. The trip seemed longer now. Arthur's body was shutting down. He could feel it happening, his muscles refusing to respond, his heart beating erratically, his vision tunneling. Almost there, Jace said, gripping Arthur's arm. Come on, old man, don't quit on me now. Arthur stumbled through the barn door and collapsed. The world tilted. Someone caught him before he hit the ground. Get him warm, a voice said. Now! Rough hands stripped off his wet coat. Blankets wrapped around him. Someone pressed a warm canteen to his lips. Water trickled down his throat. How many? Arthur croaked. How many more? Two, Jace said. We're only missing two now. Gotta go back. You ain't going anywhere, Jace said firmly. You've done enough, more than enough. We'll get the last two. No, my farm, my responsibility. It's our brothers, Jace said. Our responsibility. You rest, we got this. Arthur wanted to argue, but his body wouldn't let him. His eyes closed. The last thing he heard was the barn door slamming as the bikers went back into the storm. He woke to shouting. Arthur's eyes snapped open. The barn was chaos. Men were yelling, moving, crowding around something near the door. He tried to sit up, but his body wouldn't cooperate. What's happening? Arthur called out. Jace appeared beside him. We found them, the last two. But one of them, Arthur, it's our president, Silas Grimm, and he ain't breathing. Arthur forced himself to his feet. His legs shook, threatened to give out, but he stayed upright. He pushed through the crowd of bikers until he saw the man on the ground. Silas Grimm was massive, 6'5", probably 300 pounds of muscle and leather. His face was blue. His chest wasn't moving. How long's he been down? Arthur asked. Don't know, Jace said. We found him and Crow together, both unconscious. Crow's breathing, but Silas... Arthur dropped to his knees beside the giant man. He tilted Silas's head back, checked his airway, and pressed his ear to the man's chest. No heartbeat. Someone start compressions, Arthur said. Now. Scarface stepped forward. I know CPR. Then do it. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Don't stop until I say. Scarface locked his hands and started pumping Silas's chest. Arthur counted in his head. At 30, he leaned down and breathed into Silas's mouth. Once, twice, nothing. Again, Arthur said. They repeated the cycle. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, nothing. Again. The barn had gone silent except for the sound of Scarface's compressions and Arthur's breaths. Every biker was watching, their faces pale, their hands clenched into fists. Come on, Silas, Jace whispered. Come on, brother. Don't leave us. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Silas's chest hitched. There, Arthur said. Again, keep going. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Silas coughed. Water and bile spilled from his mouth. His eyes flew open, wild and confused, and he gasped a huge rattling breath that sounded like an engine roaring to life. The barn erupted in cheers. Silas rolled onto his side, coughing, his whole body shaking. Jace dropped beside him, gripping his president's shoulder. You're okay, Jace said. You're okay, boss. We got you. Silas's eyes found Arthur. Who the hell? Name's Arthur Pendleton, Arthur said. Welcome to my barn. Silas stared at him for a long moment. Then impossibly he laughed, a deep rumbling sound that shook his whole frame. You're the old man who's been dragging us out of the snow. That'd be me. You're insane. Yeah, Arthur said. I've been hearing that a lot tonight. Silas tried to sit up. It took 3 men to help him. Once upright, he looked around the barn, counting faces. Everyone accounted for. Tank didn't make it, Jace said quietly. Everyone else is here. Silas's face went hard. He closed his eyes, his jaw clenching. Tank, Jesus, Tank. We'll bring him in once the storm passes, Jace said. Give him a proper send-off. Silas nodded. He looked at Arthur again. You saved my life, old man. Saved all our lives. Why? Arthur shrugged. What else was I supposed to do? Let you freeze. Most people would have. Yeah, well, Arthur said, I ain't most people. Silas studied him. Really studied him, like he was trying to figure out if Arthur was real or some kind of hallucination. Then he extended his hand, a massive, scarred hand that could crush Arthur's like a twig. Arthur took it. I owe you a debt, Silas said. We all do, and we pay our debts. You understand? Arthur didn't, not really, but he nodded anyway. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the barn, 19 bikers and one 80-year-old farmer sat together in the lantern light, alive against all odds, bound by something that none of them could quite name yet. The storm didn't let up until dawn. When the first gray light crept through the barn's broken slats, Arthur was still awake. He tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Tank's frozen face staring up at nothing. 1 dead, 19 saved. The numbers didn't balance right in his head. You should rest, Jace said, settling down beside him. The young biker had appointed himself Arthur's guardian, refusing to leave his side. Can't, Arthur said. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Too much to do once this weather breaks. Like what? Arthur gestured toward the barn door. Got a farm falling apart, bills I can't pay, and a bank auction scheduled for next Friday. Saving you boys was the easy part. Jace went quiet. Around them, the other bikers were waking up, groaning, testing their frozen limbs. Someone had managed to light a small fire in an old metal drum, and men crowded around it like moths. Silas pushed himself to his feet, wincing with every movement. His massive frame swayed, but he stayed upright through sheer willpower. Jace, gather everyone who can stand. We need to talk. 10 minutes later, 16 bikers stood in a rough circle. 3 were still too weak to move, wrapped in blankets near the fire. Arthur stayed seated against the wall, watching. First thing, Silas said, his voice carrying despite the weakness in his body. We lost Tank. When this storm clears, we bring him in proper. We bury him right. Anyone got a problem with that? Silence. Several men wiped their eyes. Second thing, Silas continued, this man, he pointed at Arthur, saved our lives when he had every reason not to. We were trespassing on his property. We're not exactly upstanding citizens. He could have locked his door and let nature handle us. Instead, he damn near killed himself, dragging us to safety. I counted, Jace interrupted. Arthur pulled 14 men out of that storm before we could help. 14, at 80 years old. Murmurs rippled through the group. The bikers looked at Arthur with something close to reverence. We owe him, Silas said. And I don't know about you boys, but I pay my debts. Always have. Always will. What did you have in mind, boss? Scarface asked. Silas turned to Arthur. What do you need, old man? And don't say nothing. I can see this place is falling apart. Arthur struggled to his feet, and his pride warring with his desperation. I don't need charity. It ain't charity, Silas said. It's payment. You saved 19 lives. That's worth something. Arthur's jaw worked. He looked around the barn at the holes in the roof, the rotting beams, the rusted equipment visible through the gaps in the walls. Beyond that, his farmhouse was in worse shape. The well had run dry last summer. The tractor hadn't started in 3 years. And in 6 days, the bank was going to auction everything off to pay debts he'd accumulated after Martha died. I'm losing the farm, Arthur said finally. Bank's selling it Friday. I owe $43,000 in back taxes and medical bills. Even if you boys wanted to help, that's done, Silas said. Arthur blinked. What? I said done. $43,000. We'll have it by Friday. You can't just watch me. Silas looked at his men. How much we got in the club treasury? About $18,000, Jace said, but boss, that's for... I know what it's for. We'll rebuild it. How much can each of you spare by Friday? The bikers started calling out numbers. 500 here, 1,000 there, 2,000 from a biker named Crow who apparently ran a successful auto shop. The numbers climbed. That's 26,000, Jace calculated. We're still short 17. Silas pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked, but it worked. He dialed a number and waited. Viper, it's Silas. Yeah, I'm alive. Long story. Listen, I need 17,000 by Thursday. Can you pull it together? He listened. I don't care if you have to sell your bike. This is important. I'll explain later. He hung up. Done. You'll have your money by Friday morning, Arthur. Arthur's legs went weak. He sat down hard on a hay bale. I can't accept that. You don't got a choice, Silas said. Besides, that's just the beginning. We're fixing this place up too. Proper. New roof working equipment, whatever you need. Why? Arthur's voice cracked. Why would you do all this? Silas crouched down until he was eye level with Arthur. Up close, his face was a roadmap of scars and hard years. Because my old man used to beat me bloody every night until I was big enough to fight back. When I ran away at 15, nobody helped me. Nobody gave a damn. I survived, but just barely. Joined the club when I was 17, found a family that actually gave a shit. He paused. You didn't know us. Didn't know if we were dangerous. Probably figured we were. But you helped anyway. That means something. Arthur couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. We take care of our own, Silas said. And as of last night, you're one of us. The barn door suddenly slammed open. A blast of cold air swept through and a figure stumbled inside. It was a man Arthur didn't recognize, thin, shaking his face blue with cold. Help, the man gasped. Please, my daughter, she's in the car. I couldn't get it started. The heater died. She's only 6. Please. Jace was already moving. Where? Half-mile down the road, maybe less. I couldn't see the snow. Take me, Jace said. You can barely walk, Arthur protested. Then I'll crawl. Jace grabbed his jacket. Anyone else coming? 4 bikers stepped forward despite their injuries. They headed into the dying storm without another word. The thin man collapsed near the fire. Thank you. Thank you. Oh God, thank you. What's your name? Arthur asked. David. David Chen. We were trying to get to Billings. My wife's in the hospital there. She had surgery. I was bringing our daughter to see her, and the storm came out of nowhere. Easy, Arthur said. They'll find her. These boys are good at finding people. It felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes before the barn door opened again. Jace walked in carrying a small bundle wrapped in his leather jacket. A little girl with black hair and frozen tears on her cheeks. David rushed over sobbing. Lily, oh God, Lily. Jace handed the child to her father. She's okay, cold, but okay. We got her out in time. Arthur watched David clutch his daughter, watched the little girl's arms wrap around her father's neck, and something broke open in his chest. The weight of Martha's death, of losing the farm, of 60 years of hard work coming to nothing, it all pressed down at once, and Arthur had to turn away so no one would see the tears. But Silas saw. The big man put a hand on Arthur's shoulder and squeezed once. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. By mid-morning, the storm had passed. The world outside was a white wasteland, but the sun was shining. The bikers who could walk went out to retrieve Tank's body. They found him where they'd left him, covered in fresh snow, peaceful. They brought him into the barn and laid him on a makeshift table made from old boards. Someone found a tarp to cover Tin. The bikers gathered around silent, their heads bowed. Silas cleared his throat. Tank was a good man, loyal, tough as hell. He once took a bat to the ribs defending a prospect who couldn't defend himself. Never complained, never backed down. He was our brother. His voice broke. And now he's gone. One by one, the bikers stepped forward. Each placed something on Tank's chest. A knife, a bandana, a silver ring, tokens of respect, of brotherhood, of love. When it was over, Silas looked at Arthur. You got anywhere we can keep him until the ground thaws? We'll bury him proper come spring. Arthur nodded. Old storm cellar, stays cold year-round. It ain't much, but it's perfect, Silas said. Thank you. They carried Tank to the cellar and sealed it shut. Arthur said a prayer, the same one he'd said over Martha's grave 6 months ago. The bikers stood silent, their weathered faces somber. Back in the barn, David Chen was preparing to leave. The storm had cleared enough to make travel possible. I can't thank you enough, he said to Arthur. All of you. You saved my daughter's life. Just doing what's right, Arthur said. Still, David pressed something into Arthur's hand, a business card. I'm a lawyer, real estate contracts, that sort of thing. If you ever need help, call me. I owe you everything. Arthur pocketed the card without looking at it. Get to your wife. Tell her Lily's safe. After David and his daughter left the barn, felt emptier. The bikers started gathering their gear, preparing to leave once their bikes could be dug out. Several motorcycles were totaled, crushed under snow, or damaged beyond repair, but most had survived. Arthur found Silas outside, staring at the buried bikes. You really meant what you said about the money. Every word, Silas confirmed. But Arthur, I gotta be honest with you. That money's coming from some places that ain't exactly legal. We run an honest club, mostly auto shops, security work, legitimate business. But we also do some things the law don't like. I won't lie to you about that. Arthur was quiet for a moment. I spent 60 years following every rule, paid my taxes on time, went to church every Sunday, did everything right. And where'd it get me? Broken alone, about to lose everything. He looked at Silas. I ain't not asking where the money comes from. I'm just saying thank you. Silas grinned. You're all right, old man. It took 3 days to dig out the motorcycles. The bikers worked in shifts, the stronger ones helping the weaker. Arthur worked alongside them despite protests, clearing snow from his driveway, his barn, his fields. His body screamed at him to stop, but he couldn't, wouldn't. On the third day, a truck pulled up to Arthur's house. A man in a suit got out carrying a briefcase. Arthur Pendleton, the man called. Arthur's stomach dropped. He recognized the type bank employee lawyer, someone here to make his life worse. That's me. I'm Gerald from First National Bank. I'm here about your property auctions scheduled for Friday. I know, Arthur said. I'll be out by then. Actually, that's why I'm here. Voss opened his briefcase and pulled out papers. We've received a payment, full amount owed plus 6 months advance on future taxes, $43,816. The auction's been canceled. Arthur couldn't breathe. What? When? Payment arrived this morning. Cashier's check, all legitimate. The property's yours, free and clear. Voss handed Arthur the papers. You just need to sign these. Arthur's hands shook as he took the pen. He looked over at the barn where several bikers were watching. Silas stood among them, arms crossed, face neutral, but Arthur saw the slight nod. Who paid it? Arthur asked. Anonymous donor, Voss said. All I know is the check cleared. Congratulations, Mr. Pendleton. You get to keep your farm. After Voss left, Arthur walked to the barn on legs that didn't feel real. The bikers watched him approach. It's only Wednesday, Arthur said to Silas. You said Friday. Figured you'd sleep better knowing it was done, Silas replied. Arthur's vision blurred. He tried to speak, but no words came. Instead, he did something he hadn't done since Martha's funeral. He cried, not quiet tears, but full gasping sobs that shook his entire frame. Silas pulled him into a hug. This massive, scarred, dangerous man held Arthur like a father holds a son, and Arthur clung to him. It's okay, Silas murmured. It's okay, old man. You're going to be all right. When Arthur finally pulled away embarrassed, he found every biker looking elsewhere, giving him privacy. Jace handed him a bandana to wipe his face. Thank you, Arthur managed. I don't know how I'll ever... You already did, Silas interrupted. You saved our lives. This just makes us even. But it didn't feel even. It felt like grace, like the universe had finally decided to balance the scales after 6 months of hell. That night, the bikers gathered in Arthur's farmhouse for the first time. The place was a disaster, leaking roof-broken windows, furniture held together with hope and duct tape. But it was warm, and Arthur had managed to cook a massive pot of stew from his dwindling supplies. They ate together around Arthur's old table. 20 men crammed into a space meant for 4 laughing, telling stories, remembering Tank. Arthur sat at the head of the table right where he'd sat with Martha for 47 years, and for the first time since her death, the chair didn't feel empty. Tell us about your wife, Crow said. The older biker had been quiet until now, but his eyes were kind. Martha Wright, Jace said you mentioned her. Arthur smiled. Martha was a force of nature, stood 5'0", but could stare down a bull. She ran this farm as much as I did, maybe more. He paused. Cancer took her 6 months ago. By the time they found it, wasn't nothing they could do. Spent our whole savings trying anyway. That's where the debt came from, Jace said quietly. Most of it. Rest was back taxes I couldn't pay after she died. Couldn't keep up with the farm work alone, couldn't afford help. It all just, Arthur gestured vaguely, fell apart. What would she think, Silas asked. About all this, about us. Arthur laughed. Martha would have loved you boys. She always said the measure of a man ain't in how he looks or what he owns, it's in what he does when nobody's watching. You boys proved that in the storm. Every one of you who could stand went back out to find your brothers. That's character. Even though we're criminals, Scarface asked with a wry grin. Especially because you're criminals, Arthur shot back. Means you chose to be good when you could have chosen otherwise. That counts for something. The conversation drifted to lighter topics. Someone told a story about a bar fight in Reno. Someone else talked about their first motorcycle. Jace told a joke so filthy that Arthur laughed until his sides hurt. Near midnight, as the bikers were preparing to bed down in the barn for one more night, before heading out, there was a knock at the door. Arthur opened it to find a woman standing on his porch. She was maybe 40, well-dressed with a stern face and calculating eyes. "Arthur Pendleton," she asked. "Yes, I'm Rebecca Walsh. I represent Titan Development Corporation. We're interested in purchasing your property." Arthur's good mood evaporated. "It ain't for sale." "Everything's for sale, Mr. Pendleton. We're prepared to offer $200,000 for your 200 acres. Cash closing within 30 days. "I said it ain't for sale. Sir, with all due respect, this property is barely functional. Your house is falling apart, your equipment is ancient, and you're, forgive me, not getting any younger. $200,000 could set you up comfortably for the rest of your life." Behind Arthur, Silas appeared in the doorway. "Lady," the man said no. Rebecca's eyes flicked to Silas, taking in his size, his scars, his club patch. Her expression hardened. "And you are someone who's going to ask you politely to leave. This is a private conversation between me and Mr. Pendleton. And I'm making it public," Silas said. "You want to buy land, go buy somebody else's. This farm ain't for sale." Rebecca's smile was cold. "Mr. Pendleton, I should inform you that Titan Development has already purchased the 3 properties adjacent to yours. We're planning a major resort development. Your property is right in the middle of it. One way or another, we're getting this land." "Is that a threat, Femero?" Arthur asked. "It's a fact. You can take our generous offer now, or you can wait until we make your life so difficult that you'll beg us to buy you out. Your choice." She handed Arthur a business card. "Think about it. You have until Monday." She walked back to her car, a sleek BMW that looked obscene parked in Arthur's snowy driveway, and drove away. Arthur stared at the card in his hand. Silas took it from him and tore it in half. "Don't worry about her," Silas said, "and we'll handle it." "How?" Arthur asked. "She's right. I can't fight some big corporation. They'll bury me in legal fees, regulations, inspections. They'll make my life hell until I give up. Then it's a good thing you got 19 brothers who specialize in making life hell for people who deserve it," Silas said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. The next morning, Thursday, the bikers finally left. Their motorcycles roared to life, one by one, filling the cold morning air with thunder. They lined up in Arthur's driveway, a column of chrome and leather stretching back to the road. Silas was the last to mount his bike. "We'll be back," he told Arthur. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Gonna gather some supplies, get organized. When we come back, we're fixing this place up proper." "You don't have to." "Yeah, we do. Besides, you're part of the club now. We take care of our own." "I'm not a biker," Arthur protested. Silas pulled something from his saddlebag, a leather vest similar to the ones the bikers wore but without patches. "You will be. Gotta earn your patches, but you're one of us now, like it or not." Arthur took the vest. It was heavy, real leather, probably worth more than his truck. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say nothing. Just keep that developer woman away until we get back. Can you do that?" "I'll try." Jace rode up on his bike. "Arthur, you got a phone number?" "Somewhere we can reach you." Arthur rattled off the number to his old landline. Jace programmed it into his cell. "You need anything? Anything at all, you call me. Got it?" "Got it." One by one, the bikers rolled out. They honked their horns, raised their fists in farewell, their engines creating a symphony of controlled chaos. Arthur stood in his driveway watching until the last bike disappeared over the horizon and the sound faded to silence. Then he was alone again. Just him and 200 acres of snow-covered land and a farmhouse that was falling apart. But for the first time in 6 months, Arthur didn't feel alone. He looked down at the leather vest in his hands and smiled. Friday came and went without incident. Arthur spent the day clearing more snow, feeding his remaining livestock 3 chickens and an old horse named Buck, and trying to patch the worst holes in his roof before more snow came. Saturday brought visitors. Not Rebecca Walsh, but a county inspector. The man walked Arthur's property with a clipboard, taking notes, his face professionally neutral. "What's this about?" Arthur asked. "Routine inspection," the man said. "We've had complaints about code violations, unsafe structures, potential environmental hazards, that sort of thing." "From who?" "Anonymous tip. But I gotta follow up." The inspector pointed at Arthur's barn. "That structure's a hazard. Roof's compromised support beams are rotted. It should probably be condemned. That barn stood for 80 years. And it's showing its age. I'm sorry, Mr. Pendleton, but I'm going to have to red tag it. You can't use it until repairs are made to code. I can't afford repairs to code. Then I'm afraid you can't use the barn. Same goes for your equipment, shed your chicken coop, and possibly your house. I'll need to do a full interior inspection to determine if it's safe for habitation. Arthur's hands clenched into fists. This was it. This was how Titan Development planned to force him out. Death by 1,000 cuts, regulations, and inspections until he had nowhere to live and no way to work his land. When Arthur asked, "I can come back Monday. Give you the weekend to prepare." After the inspector left, Arthur sat on his porch and seriously considered giving up. He was 80 years old, alone, fighting a corporation with infinite money and lawyers. What was the point? His phone rang. The old landline, its bell harsh and loud. "Hello? Arthur, it's Jace. How you holding up?" Arthur told him about the inspector, about the red tags and the code violations and the interior inspection scheduled for Monday. Jace was quiet for a long moment. Okay, don't panic. We're coming back." "You don't have to. We're already on the road, should be there by tomorrow night. And Arthur, we're bringing help, lots of help." "What kind of help?" "The kind that'll make that inspector wish he'd stayed home Monday." Jace paused. "Trust me, we got this." Sunday evening, Arthur heard the motorcycles before he saw them. But this time it wasn't 19 bikes. It was hundreds. The sound built like distant thunder, growing louder and louder until Arthur's windows rattled. He walked outside and stopped dead. Motorcycles stretched down his driveway and out onto the road as far as he could see. Hundreds of them, maybe more. Bikers wearing different patches, different colors from different clubs. But they all had one thing in common. They were all riding toward his farm. Silas rode at the front. He pulled up to Arthur's porch and killed his engine. "Told you we'd be back," Silas said with a grin. "Brought some friends." Arthur couldn't speak. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. 500 motorcycles, maybe more, lined up in front of his dying farm. The noise alone was enough to wake the dead. "Close your mouth, old man," Silas said, dismounting. "You're catching flies." How did you?" "Made some calls, called in some favors. Turns out saving 19 lives buys you a lot of goodwill in the MC community." Silas gestured to the sea of bikers behind him. "These boys came from 6 different states. Some drove 20 hours straight, all because they heard what you did for us." A massive biker with a gray beard walked up. His patch read, "Iron Wolves MC, President." He extended a hand to Arthur. "Name's Bear. Heard you pulled my cousin Jace out of a snowdrift." "That true?" Arthur shook his hand, still dazed. Yes, sir." "Then I owe you, we all do." Bear turned and whistled sharply. "All right, you degenerates, let's get organized. Construction crew left side, plumbers and electricians center. Anyone who can swing a hammer and doesn't know their ass from a hole in the ground, right side." The bikers moved like a military unit. Within minutes, they'd separated into groups, each with a designated leader barking orders. Tools appeared from saddlebags and truck beds. Lumber, shingles, pipes, wire, supplies Arthur couldn't even identify materialized as if by magic. "Where did all this come from?" Arthur asked. "Hardware stores within 50 miles, Silas said. "We bought them out. Cost about 30 grand, but who's counting? $30,000. "Stop worrying about the money, we got plenty." Silas clapped Arthur on the shoulder. "Now where do you want us to start?" Before Arthur could answer, a woman's voice cut through the noise. "What the hell is going on here?" Rebecca Walsh stood at the edge of Arthur's property, her BMW parked on the road. Behind her stood the county inspector from yesterday and 2 police officers. Silas's expression went cold. "Private property, ma'am. You're trespassing." "I'm representing Titan Development. We have legitimate business with Mr. Pendleton." "He told you no. That's the end of your business." Rebecca's smile was poisonous. "Actually, I brought the county inspector and local law enforcement to discuss the numerous code violations on this property. Isn't that right, Inspector Morris?" The inspector stepped forward, looking distinctly uncomfortable, surrounded by 500 bikers. "Mr. Pendleton, I'm afraid I'm going to have to move up our inspection. Based on what I'm seeing here, this many people on a structurally unsound property, I have safety concerns. I'm going to have to ask everyone to leave immediately. We ain't leaving, Bear said flatly. One of the police officers put his hand on his belt. Sir, if the inspector says it's unsafe, then we'll make it safe, Silas interrupted. We got licensed contractors here. Electricians, plumbers, structural engineers. This property will be up to code by end of day tomorrow. That's not how this works, Inspector Morris said. You need permits, approved plans, inspections at each stage of construction. Then write us up some permits, Jace said, appearing beside Silas. We'll pay whatever fees you want. Cash. Morris hesitated. Rebecca stepped closer to him, her voice low but carrying. Inspector, I believe you'll find that emergency condemnation is warranted here. For public safety. Arthur's stomach dropped. Condemnation meant they could force him off his property immediately, could seize it for public safety and sell it to whoever they wanted, to tighten development. Now hold on, one of the police officers said. His nameplate read Deputy Chen. Arthur recognized the last name immediately. Before we go condemning anything, maybe we should let these folks show us what they're planning. If they can bring this property up to code. Deputy Chen, Rebecca said sharply. Are you seriously suggesting we allow an illegal construction project to proceed? I'm suggesting we give Mr. Pendleton a chance, Chen said. His eyes met Arthur's, and Arthur saw recognition there. This was David Chen's brother had to be. The family resemblance was obvious. My brother told me what happened during the storm, what this man did. I think we owe him some consideration. Your personal feelings are irrelevant, Rebecca snapped. So are yours, Chen shot back. Last I checked, tightened development doesn't make the laws in this county. The second police officer, older and harder looking, stepped between them. Everyone calmed down. Inspector Morris, what exactly are the violations we're talking about? Morris pulled out his clipboard, visibly sweating despite the cold. Structural issues with the barn equipment, shed, and chicken coop, potential electrical hazards in the main house. Possible code violations regarding, we'll fix all of it, Silas said. Give us 48 hours. If we can't bring everything up to code in that time, Arthur will voluntarily leave the property until repairs are complete. Fair. Absolutely not fair, Rebecca said. This is highly irregular. I'm calling my attorney. You do that, Silas said. We'll be here working. Unless you plan to arrest 500 people for the crime of home improvement. The older officer looked at the sea of bikers. Arthur could see him doing the math, 2 cops versus 500 bikers. Even with backup, it would be a bloodbath. 48 hours, the officer said finally. But I want a licensed contractor on site to verify everything meets code. And Inspector Morris here will be checking progress every 6 hours. Anything looks unsafe, we shut it down immediately. Agreed. Agreed, Silas said. Rebecca's face went purple. This is outrageous. I'll have both your badges for this. File a complaint, Deputy Chen said mildly. The station's open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Rebecca stormed back to her BMW and peeled out spraying gravel. The 2 officers and Inspector Morris stayed watching warily as the bikers got to work. Within an hour, Arthur's farm had transformed into organized chaos. The barn was swarmed by 24 men, half of them tearing out rotten boards while the other half measured and cut replacements. The roof crew had scaffolding up and were ripping off old shingles. Electricians had the house's panel opened, replacing ancient wiring that probably should have killed Arthur years ago. A biker named Tiny, who was anything but tiny, appeared to be in charge of the barn reconstruction. He grabbed Arthur and pulled him aside. I need to know about load bearing, Tiny said. This center beam here is cracked. We replace it, the whole roof could come down. We need to support it first, but I need to know if there's anything above it we should worry about. Hayloft, Arthur said, but it's empty. Been empty for years. Good. We'll jack up the roof, replace the beam, then reinforce the whole structure. Should take about 6 hours if we don't hit any surprises. 6 hours. That beam took me and 3 other men 2 days to install, and we were young. Tiny grinned. Yeah, but you didn't have 20 guys who do this for a living. Half these boys work construction. The other half own body shops, but they know their way around a hammer. Arthur wandered through his property in a daze. Everywhere he looked, bikers were working. Not just working, transforming. The chicken coop was being torn down to the foundation and rebuilt. The equipment shed had a new roof already. Someone had even started fixing his fence line. Mr. Pendleton, a woman's voice. Arthur turned to find a biker woman, tall tattooed with kind eyes, holding a clipboard. I'm Sarah. I run a diner in Billings, but I also do bookkeeping. Silas asked me to inventory everything we're doing so you have records for the inspector. That okay? More than okay, thank you. Also, some of the ladies are setting up a kitchen in your house. Hope you don't mind, but we figured 500 people need feeding, and your kitchen was a disaster anyway. We're replacing the stove, fixing the sink, and putting in a new refrigerator. The old one was held together with prayers. Arthur's throat tightened. You don't have to. Yeah, we do. Besides the guys who donated the appliances own an appliance store, they were happy to help, said to call it a tax write-off. By evening, the transformation was undeniable. The barn had a new roof, new support beams and walls that didn't have gaps you could see through. The equipment shed was completely rebuilt. The chicken coop looked better than it had in 30 years. Inspector Morris showed up for his 6-hour check, looking nervous. Deputy Chen came with him for security purposes, though Arthur suspected it was more to keep Morris honest. Morris walked through the barn, slowly checking every joint, every beam, every nail. He pulled out a measuring tape, even some kind of electronic device Arthur didn't recognize. Well, Silas asked after 20 minutes of silent inspection. Morris looked up, and Arthur saw something like respect in his eyes. It's good work, really good. Better than most professional crews I've seen. The support structure is sound, the electrical is up to code, even the ventilation exceeds minimum requirements. He paused. I'm impressed. Barn's clear then, Jace asked. Barn's clear. I'll need to check the house and other structures, but if they're anything like this… Morris trailed off, shaking his head. You boys know what you're doing. Some of us went to trade school before we became outlaws, Bear said with a grin. Morris actually smiled at that. Fair enough. The house inspection took longer. Morris found problems: old wiring that hadn't been replaced yet, plumbing that needed work, a foundation crack that needed sealing, but nothing that warranted condemnation, nothing that couldn't be fixed. I'll be back in 6 hours, Amardis said. If the electrical and plumbing are done by then and that foundation crack is sealed, I'll sign off on the house. After he left, Silas gathered the electrical and plumbing crews. You heard the man. We got 6 hours. Let's make it happen. They made it happen in 4. Arthur tried to help, but every time he picked up a tool, someone gently took it from him. You rest, old man, they'd say. You already did your part. So Arthur watched as these men, criminals, outlaws, the kind of people society had written off, worked through the night to save his farm. Some of them were in their 20s, covered in tattoos and piercings. Some were in their 50s, gray-haired and scarred. But they all worked with the same purpose, the same dedication. Around midnight, someone started a bonfire in Arthur's front yard. Bikers gathered around it in shifts, warming themselves before going back to work. Someone produced guitars. Music filled the cold night air, old country songs, rock ballads, even some Johnny Cash. Arthur sat by the fire, wrapped in a blanket, and listened. Jace sat down beside him, holding 2 steaming mugs. Coffee, Jace said, handing one to Arthur. Sarah made it. She says you take it black. How'd she know that? She's good at reading people. Jace sipped his own coffee. You doing okay? I don't know what I'm doing, Arthur admitted. It's too much. I don't deserve this. Yeah, you do. You saved our lives. We're just returning the favor. It's not the same. What you're doing here, it's worth way more than… Stop, Jace said firmly. Stop trying to measure it. You can't put a price on a life. Tank's gone because we were stupid enough to ride into a blizzard. Yeah. The rest of us are alive because you were brave enough to drag us out of it. That's worth everything we're doing and more. Arthur stared into his coffee. Your president, Silas, he said you boys do some things that ain't legal. That true? Jace was quiet for a moment. Yeah, some of us run clean businesses. But some of us, we do what we gotta do to survive. Nothing that hurts innocent people, but yeah, we break laws. Drugs. No, never. That's a hard line for us. We've all seen what that does to communities. But we run some gambling, some protection services, move some merchandise that might have fallen off trucks. Nothing we're proud of, but nothing we're ashamed of either. Arthur nodded slowly. Martha would have called it a gray area. She didn't believe in pure good or pure evil. Said most people live somewhere in the middle, doing their best with what they got. Smart woman. The smartest. Arthur's voice cracked. I miss her every damn day. Jace put an arm around Arthur's shoulders. They sat like that for a while, two men from completely different worlds bound by something neither of them could fully name. Inspector Morris came back at 2 in the morning. The electrical crew had finished an hour ago. The plumbers were putting the final touches on new pipes under the kitchen sink. The foundation crack was sealed and drying. Morris inspected everything with the same meticulous attention as before. When he finally straightened up, he looked tired but satisfied. It's good, he said. All of it. The house is up to code, better than code in some places. He signed his clipboard and handed Arthur a sheet of paper. Temporary certificate of occupancy, good for 6 months while you get everything else finalized. But honestly, at the rate these guys are working, you'll be fully certified by end of week. Arthur took the paper with shaking hands. Thank you. Morris hesitated. Mr. Pendleton, I want you to know, I didn't want to red tag your property, but when Titan Development starts making calls to my supervisor, I don't have much choice. They've got lawyers, political connections, money. I'm just a county inspector trying to keep my job. I understand. But what these folks are doing here, this is something special. Don't let anyone take it away from you. Morris glanced at the bikers working in the distance. I grew up thinking guys like them were the problem. But tonight I've seen more community, more brotherhood, more genuine care than I've seen from any corporation or politician. Makes you rethink things. Deputy Chen walked Morris back to his car. After they left, Silas approached Arthur. House is clear, Arthur said, holding up the certificate. Damn right it is. Now we move on to phase 2. Phase 2, Silas grinned hard. Making this place actually functional. New well-working tractor equipment that doesn't look like it belongs in a museum. We got 3 more days before that developer woman can legally bother you again. Let's make them count. The next 3 days were a blur. Arthur woke up Monday morning to find a drilling crew installing a new well. By afternoon, they'd hit water clean, cold, abundant. Arthur turned on his kitchen faucet and cried when water actually came out with decent pressure. Tuesday brought a refurbished tractor donated by a biker who ran a farm equipment business in Wyoming. It wasn't new, but it ran like a dream. Arthur climbed into the seat and just sat there, hands on the wheel, remembering all the hours he'd spent on tractors, just like this one. Martha bringing him lunch in the fields, the sun warm on his back. You okay, old man? Bear asked. Yeah, Arthur said. Yeah, I'm just remembering. Wednesday, they started on the fields themselves. Bikers who'd grown up on farms showed Arthur which equipment to use, how to prep the soil for spring planting, where to reinforce irrigation. They worked alongside him, teaching and learning, sharing stories of their own farms, their own families, their own losses. That afternoon, a convoy of vehicles arrived. Not motorcycles, cars, trucks, SUVs. Families climbed out, women and children mixing with the bikers. Sarah explained that word had spread and people wanted to help. They brought food supplies, even some livestock. A biker's daughter donated 3 goats. Because every farm needs goats, Mr. Pendleton. Arthur found himself surrounded by children, their laughter filling spaces that had been silent for months. A little boy asked if he could pet Buck, Arthur's old horse. Arthur lifted the boy onto Buck's back, and the kid's face lit up like Christmas morning. What's his name? The boy asked. Buck, short for buckshot. He's older than you, your daddy, and probably your granddaddy combined. The boy giggled. He's ancient. He is, but he's tough, like all of us. Thursday morning brought unwelcome visitors. 3 black SUVs pulled up to Arthur's property, and men in suits climbed out. Rebecca Walsh led them, her expression triumphant. Mr. Pendleton, she called, I've brought representatives from Titan Development, our legal team, and a structural engineer to conduct an independent assessment of your property. Silas stepped forward. He already passed inspection. County inspectors signed off on everything. We're aware. We're requesting a secondary inspection. It's within our rights as interested buyers. Except we ain't interested in selling, Arthur said. Nevertheless, we have concerns about the safety and legality of the work performed here. Our engineer needs access to verify everything meets federal and state standards, not just county codes. Silas looked at Arthur. Arthur nodded. What choice did he have? The engineer, a thin man with expensive glasses, spent 6 hours going over every inch of Arthur's property. He measured, photographed, took samples of materials, checked permits, and receipts. The Titan development representatives followed him like sharks, clearly hoping he'd find something wrong. He didn't. At the end of his inspection, the engineer approached Rebecca and spoke quietly. Arthur couldn't hear the conversation, but he saw Rebecca's face go red, saw her arguing with the engineer, saw him shake his head firmly. Finally, Rebecca stormed over to Arthur. "This isn't over. We're prepared to make one final offer, $300,000. Take it, Mr. Pendleton. It's more than this property is worth, and far more than you'll ever make farming it at your age." "No," Arthur said simply. "You're making a mistake. We're going to build our resort with or without your land. But without it, we'll surround you. Every property around you will be ours. You'll be isolated, constantly dealing with construction noise strangers. We'll make your life hell." "Lady," Silas said, his voice dangerous, "you got 10 seconds to get back in your fancy car and drive away before I forget my manners." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm giving you friendly advice. 9 seconds." Rebecca looked at the hundreds of bikers who'd stopped working to watch this conversation. Looked at their faces, their size, their obvious loyalty to Arthur. For the first time, Arthur saw fear in her eyes. "Fine," she said. "But when you come crawling to us in 6 months begging to sell our offer, will be half what it is today." "We'll take our chances," Arthur said. After they left, the work continued. But something had changed. The bikers weren't just rebuilding Arthur's farm anymore. They were defending it, protecting it, claiming it as their own. Thursday night, they held a celebration. Someone had brought a whole pig to roast. Beer appeared from somewhere. Music filled the air. Arthur sat in a chair of honor by the fire, watching 500 people celebrate on his land, and felt something he hadn't felt since Martha died. Hope. Jace found him near midnight. "Arthur, can I talk to you about something?" "Sure, son. Silas and me, we've been talking about what comes next. These boys got to go home soon, back to their families. But we don't want to leave you here alone, not with that developer woman circling like a vulture." "I'll be fine." "No, you won't. You need help, real help. So we got a proposal." Jace took a breath. "What if we didn't leave? What if some of us stayed here permanent? Set up a clubhouse on your property. Help you work the farm. Keep an eye on things." Arthur stared at him. "You want to live here on my farm? Not all 500 of us, but maybe 20, 30 guys. The Montana chapter and some others who've been looking for a fresh start. We'd pay rent, help with expenses, do the farm work. And if Titan Development tries anything, they'd have to go through us first. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. We're offering. Arthur, half the guys here, they don't got real homes. They got apartments, sure, or rooms above their shops, but not homes, not family. You're offering us both." Arthur's vision blurred. "What about your president? Silas approved this." "It was his idea." Silas appeared out of the darkness as if summoned. "We need a headquarters anyway. Montana chapter's been operating out of a rented garage for 5 years. Your farm's got space privacy, and now it's fortified better than Fort Knox." He paused. "Plus, old man, you saved our lives. Some debts can't be repaid with money. They require time, dedication, family." Arthur couldn't speak. His hands shook. Everything Martha had dreamed of, a farm full of life, of purpose, of people who cared, was being offered to him by the last people anyone would expect. "Yes," Arthur finally managed. "Wait, you can stay. All of you who want to. This farm's too big for one old man anyway." The celebration that night went until dawn, and when the sun rose Friday morning, Arthur Pendleton woke up in his farmhouse, warm, safe, and surrounded by family he never knew he'd have. But Rebecca Walsh wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Friday afternoon, most of the bikers packed up and headed home. They left in waves, engines roaring, arms raised in farewell. But 23 men stayed behind. 23 men who decided Arthur's farm was worth fighting for. Silas stood in Arthur's kitchen, spreading blueprints across the new table someone had built. "We need to talk about the clubhouse. Can't have 23 guys sleeping in your barn forever." "There's the old bunkhouse," Arthur said. "Behind the barn. Hasn't been used since the 70s when I had seasonal workers. It's falling apart, but the foundation's solid." Jace walked over to look. "How big?" "Maybe 2,000 square feet. Used to sleep 12 men, had a kitchen, bathroom, common area." "We can work with that," Silas said. "Rebuild it proper. Make it our headquarters. But Arthur, we got to talk money." We're going to be eating your food using your electricity, your water. That ain't free. You boys just saved my farm. I ain't charging you rent. Yeah, you are, Silas said firmly. 500 a month per man. That's 11,500 a month going into your pocket. Covers expenses and then some. Non-negotiable. Arthur started to protest, but Silas held up a hand. We ain't charity cases and neither are you. This is business. We pay our way. Always have. Fine, Arthur said, but that money goes into farm improvements. New equipment, seeds for spring planting, livestock. This place is going to be a working farm again, not a biker clubhouse with a barn attached. Silas grinned. Deal. Now about security. That developer woman ain't going to give up easy. We need cameras, motion sensors, maybe some perimeter alarms. You think she'll come back? I know she will. People like her don't take no for an answer. They just change tactics. Silas was right. Saturday morning, a county health inspector showed up. Different inspector, different department, same hostile energy. I'm here about a complaint regarding improper waste disposal and potential groundwater contamination. The woman said her clipboard already filled with notes before she'd even looked at anything. Jay stepped forward. Who filed the complaint? Anonymous, but I'm required to investigate. She walked toward the new well. This well was recently drilled. I need to see permits and water quality tests. We got permits, Silas said, producing a folder, and the drilling company did quality tests. Water's cleaner than what comes out of most city taps. The inspector barely glanced at the paperwork. I'll need independent verification. And I'm seeing evidence of multiple structures being modified without proper environmental impact assessments. Environmental impact, Arthur said. Lady, this is a farm. Been a farm for 80 years. We ain't building a chemical plant. New construction requires assessment, especially with this many residents. I'm counting at least 20 individuals living on this property. That changes the classification from residential farm to something more like a commercial facility, which means different regulations, different permits, different bribes, Jace said quietly. The inspector's face went red. Excuse me? How much did Titan Development pay you to come out here and make problems? I don't have to listen to these accusations. I'm a county official doing my job. Then do it, Silas said. Test our water, inspect our structures. We got nothing to hide, but we're also recording this entire conversation, and if we find out you're falsifying reports because someone paid you to, we'll make sure everyone knows about it. The inspector's eyes flicked at a crow who was indeed holding up his phone camera, pointed directly at her. You can't record me without permission. Montana's a one-party consent state, Crow said. I got my own permission. Smile for the camera. The inspector's inspection was thorough but ultimately fruitless. She found nothing wrong because there was nothing wrong to find. But before she left, she promised to return with more comprehensive testing equipment. They're going to keep coming, Jay said after she'd driven away. Different inspectors, different departments, different bullshit excuses. This is how they operate. Death by 1,000 cuts. So we fight back, Bear said. He'd stayed behind as part of the permanent crew bringing his construction expertise. We document everything. Keep records. Make sure every single thing we do is not just legal, but perfect. They want to play games, we'll play better. Sunday brought a surprise. Deputy Chen showed up, but not in his patrol car. He drove a personal truck and brought his wife and daughter, the same little girl Arthur had saved from the storm. Mr. Pendleton, Chen said, shaking Arthur's hand, my family wanted to thank you properly. We brought lunch. Lily Chen ran up to Arthur and hugged his legs. Thank you for saving me. Arthur's heart cracked open. He picked up the little girl, something he hadn't done since his own grandchildren had visited years ago, and she wrapped her arms around his neck. You're welcome, sweetheart. You doing okay? Mommy's better. She came home from the hospital yesterday. Chen's wife, a small woman with kind eyes, carried a basket of food. We brought homemade dumplings, rice, some vegetables from our garden that we canned last fall. It's not much, but it's perfect, Arthur said. Thank you. They ate together in Arthur's kitchen, the Chens and Arthur, and Silas and Jace. Lily told stories about school, about her friends, about the snowman she'd built. Normal everyday stories that made Arthur's house feel like a home again. After lunch, Chen pulled Arthur aside. I want you to know something. Rebecca Walsh has been making calls. To my captain, to the mayor, to county officials. She's pushing hard to find a way to force you out. I figured. But she's also making mistakes, getting sloppy. My brother David, the lawyer you helped, he's been digging into Titan development. Found some interesting things. Permits they didn't get. Environmental regulations they ignored on their other projects. He thinks there might be enough to file a lawsuit, slow them down at least. I can't afford a lawyer. Chen smiled. David says you already paid him, saved his daughter's life. That's worth more than any retainer. He's working on this pro bono. Should have something filed by end of week. After the Chens left, Arthur sat on his porch and watched the bikers work. They were rebuilding the bunkhouse, the sound of hammers and saws filling the air. Someone had brought a radio and classic rock, competed with power tools. Jace joined him, 2 beers in hand. Thought you could use this. Arthur took the beer. They drank in comfortable silence for a while. I got a question, Jace said finally. Why'd you never have kids, you and Martha? Arthur was quiet for a long moment. We tried, for years. Martha had 3 miscarriages. After the 3rd one, the doctor said she couldn't carry a baby to term. Something about her uterus, I don't remember the medical terms. We looked into adoption, but back then it was expensive and complicated. By the time we'd saved enough money, we were too old. Agencies wanted younger parents. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Martha would have been a wonderful mother. She had so much love to give and nowhere to put it after we gave up on kids. So she poured it into the farm, into me, into anyone who needed help. She'd feed every stray dog and lost soul that wandered onto our property. Arthur smiled sadly. She'd have loved you boys, every broken, rough edge one of you. We ain't that broken. Yes, you are. So am I. That's what makes this work. Broken things understand each other. Monday morning started normal. The bikers were working on the bunkhouse roof when 3 sheriffs' vehicles pulled up. Not county deputies, state sheriffs. 6 men got out, hands on their guns. Arthur Pendleton, the lead sheriff, called. Arthur's stomach dropped. That's me. We need everyone off this property immediately. We've received reports of illegal activity, possible weapons violations, drug manufacturing, unlicensed business operations. That's bullshit, Jace shouted from the roof. Sir, I'm going to need you to come down from there. Everyone hands where we can see them. The bikers climbed down slowly, hands raised. Silas stepped forward, calm but tense. Sheriff, I'm Silas Grimm, president of the Hells Angels Montana chapter. We're not manufacturing anything illegal. We're rebuilding a bunkhouse. You're welcome to search the property. We intend to. You got warrants for these searches? Silas pulled out his phone. Let me call our lawyer. You got 30 seconds before I start arresting people for obstruction. Try it, Bear growled. See what happens. The situation was escalating fast. Arthur could see it in the sheriff's body language, in the way their hands stayed near their weapons. One wrong move and this would turn into a bloodbath. Then a car pulled up, a familiar BMW. Rebecca Walsh got out smiling. Sheriff Davis, she said warmly, thank you for responding so quickly to our concerns. You called this in, Arthur said. I reported suspected criminal activity. The sheriff's department is simply doing their job. Her smile was venomous. I warned you, Mr. Pendleton. I warned you what would happen if you didn't take our offer. Arthur felt rage building in his chest, hot and dangerous. He took a step toward Rebecca, but Silas caught his arm. Don't, Silas murmured. That's what she wants. She wants you to lose control, give them a reason to arrest you. Another car pulled up. David Chen got out, briefcase in hand. Sheriff Davis, I'm David Chen, Mr. Pendleton's attorney. Before you proceed with any searches, I need to see the warrants. Davis looked uncomfortable. We don't have warrants yet. We received a credible tip about... Anonymous tips don't constitute probable cause, Chen said. And I happen to know that Ms. Walsh here has been harassing my client for weeks trying to force him to sell his property. This isn't about criminal activity. This is about corporate intimidation. That's a serious accusation, Rebecca said. So is filing false police reports, Chen shot back. He pulled papers from his briefcase. I'm filing a restraining order against Titan Development and you personally, Ms. Walsh. You're to stay at least 500 feet from my client's property at all times. You're also being served with a lawsuit for harassment, attempted coercion, and abuse of legal process. Rebecca's face went white, then red. You can't... I just did. Sheriff, I'll need you to witness this service. Chen handed papers to Rebecca. You've been served. Sheriff Davis looked at the papers, then at Rebecca, then at the bikers standing with their hands raised. Arthur could see him doing the math, realizing he'd been played. Ma'am, Davis said to Rebecca, did you file a false report? Of course not. These men are criminals. Everyone knows what motorcycle gangs do. Being in an MC ain't illegal, Silas said, and we ain't done nothing wrong. Davis looked at Chen. You're sure about this lawsuit? Absolutely sure. I've been investigating Titan development for 2 weeks. They've pulled this same stunt in 3 other states. Find a property they want, make the owner's life hell until they sell cheap, then build their resorts. They're currently facing lawsuits in Colorado and Wyoming for the exact same tactics. Davis turned to Rebecca. You need to leave. Now. This is outrageous. I'm calling my attorney. You do that, but right now you're in violation of a restraining order. You got 60 seconds to get off this property before I arrest you for trespassing. Rebecca stormed back to her car and peeled out, spraying gravel and mud. The sheriffs followed shortly after, looking embarrassed. After they left, the bikers erupted in cheers. David Chen found himself surrounded by grateful bikers, all of them shaking his hand, clapping his back. How'd you get all that together so fast? Arthur asked. My brother gave me a heads up that Walsh was making calls to law enforcement. I filed the restraining order this morning, had it ready to go. The lawsuit's real too. I've been building the case for 2 weeks. We've got them cold on harassment, at minimum possibly criminal coercion, depending on what else I find. I still can't pay you. And I still don't care. You saved my daughter's life, Mr. Pendleton. I'd go to war for you. The relief Arthur felt was overwhelming. He sat down hard on his porch steps, his legs giving out. Jay sat beside him, putting an arm around his shoulders. We're winning, Jay said quietly. You realize that? We're actually winning. But the fight wasn't over. Tuesday afternoon, someone cut the power lines leading to Arthur's farm. Deliberately. The bikers found the cut clean, precise, done with professional tools. They're escalating, Silas said, examining the severed wires. This is sabotage. Bear called the power company. They promised to send someone out, but it would take 3 days minimum. 3 days without electricity in early March, with nights still dropping below freezing. We got generators, Crow said. My shop's got 2 industrial ones. I'll bring them out tonight. That night, running on generator power, the bikers held a meeting. All 23 of them gathered in Arthur's kitchen, plus Arthur himself. We need to face facts, Silas said. Titan development ain't backing down. They got money lawyers and they're willing to play dirty. We stopped them legally, so now they're going illegal. Next it'll be fires, maybe vandalism, maybe worse. So what do we do? Asked a biker named Reaper. We can't fight a corporation. No, but we can make this farm somewhere they don't want to mess with, Bear said. We finish the clubhouse. We set up proper security, and we make it clear that anyone who comes on this property uninvited is gonna regret it. That's a line, Jay said carefully. Once we cross it, we're not just protecting Arthur. We're declaring war. Everyone looked at Arthur. He sat at the head of the table, old and tired, but determined. You boys came here to help me save my farm, Arthur said slowly. I can't ask you to put yourselves in danger for... You ain't asking, Silas interrupted. We're volunteering. Arthur, you're one of us now. You wear the vest. You're family. And we protect family. Always. The vote was unanimous. Wednesday morning, the bikers went into full security mode. They installed cameras at every entrance to the property, motion sensors along the fence line, floodlights that would turn night into day. Someone even rigged up an alarm system that would alert everyone's phones if triggered. Arthur watched them work, feeling both grateful and guilty. These men were putting themselves at risk for him, for his farm, for a dying piece of land most people would have abandoned years ago. Stop thinking so loud, Jay said, appearing beside him. I can hear your guilt from here. This ain't your fight. Yeah, it is. You made it our fight when you dragged 19 frozen bikers into your barn. When you damn near killed yourself, saving people you didn't know. You think we're gonna walk away now? Let some corporate assholes destroy what you built. What I built is already destroyed. I'm 80 years old. Farm's been dying for years. Maybe I should just... Don't. Jace's voice was sharp. Don't you dare finish that sentence. This farm ain't dead. It's getting a second chance. Just like every man here. We're all second chances, Arthur. All of us. We found purpose here, found family. You think we're going to let that go without a fight? Arthur couldn't answer. His throat was too tight. That night, the alarm triggered at 2 in the morning. Everyone's phones screamed simultaneously. The bikers poured out of the barn and bunkhouse, some in jeans, some in just underwear, all of them ready. The cameras showed a figure at the back fence near the equipment shed. Silas and 5 others ran toward it while the rest secured the perimeters. They caught him halfway over the fence, a young guy maybe 25 wearing all black. He had bolt cutters and a backpack full of equipment. "Who sent you?" Silas demanded, pinning the guy against the fence. "Nobody, I was just—" "Don't lie to me." Silas pulled the guy's wallet. Inside was a business card for Titan Development and $3,000 cash. The kid started crying. "They said just cut some fence, maybe slash some tires. Said it was easy money. I didn't know there'd be so many of you." "Who hired you, Walsh?" "I don't know names. Some guy called me, offered cash, said do this job." "That's all I know, I swear." Silas looked at the kid for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and called Deputy Chen. "We got a trespasser, caught him in the act. He's got evidence linking him to Titan Development. You want to come pick him up?" Chen arrived 20 minutes later. He took the kid the bolt cutters, the backpack, and most importantly, the business card and cash. "This is good," Chen said, "real good. This proves Titan Development is using illegal tactics. Walsh is going down." After Chen left, the bikers went back to bed. But Arthur couldn't sleep. He stood on his porch looking at his farm and felt the weight of everything that had happened. Footsteps behind him. Silas wrapped in a blanket against the cold. "Can't sleep either," Silas asked. "Too much going on in my head." They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. "I talked to Martha tonight," Arthur said quietly. "I know that sounds crazy, but I do it sometimes. Tell her about my day. Ask her what she'd do." "What did she say?" "She said I'm being stubborn and foolish and brave all at the same time. Said that's what she loved about me." Arthur smiled sadly. "She also said I should stop trying to carry everything alone, that these boys showing up is a blessing, and I should stop feeling guilty about accepting help." Smart woman. "The smartest," Arthur paused. "Silas, what happens if they win? If Titan Development finds a way to force me out?" "They won't." "But what if they do?" Silas turned to face Arthur. "Then we burn it down. Every structure, every building. We salt the earth so nothing grows here for years. They want this land, they can have ashes." Arthur stared at him. "You're serious." "Dead serious. They ain't getting your farm, Arthur. One way or another, we make sure of that." Thursday morning brought news. David Chen called, his voice excited. "The kid from last night, he talked, gave us everything. Names, dates, payments. Titan Development's been doing this for years. The DA is opening a criminal investigation. Walsh is looking at charges." "What kind of charges?" "Criminal conspiracy, bribery, witness tampering, fraud. If we're lucky, this takes down the whole company. At minimum, it kills their Montana operations for years." Arthur sat down dizzy with relief. "It's over." "Not quite. They'll fight back, hire expensive lawyers, drag it out. But the legal momentum's shifted. You're not defending anymore. You're attacking." That afternoon, Arthur got another visitor. An old woman, maybe 70, impeccably dressed. "Mr. Pendleton, my name is Margaret Chen. I'm David and Deputy Chen's mother." Arthur invited her inside. She sat in Martha's old chair and looked around the kitchen with approval. "My sons told me what you did during the storm, how you saved David's daughter, how you've taken in these motorcycle men, how you're fighting to keep your home." She pulled an envelope from her purse. "My husband and I own a small restaurant in Billings. We're not wealthy, but we've done well. We'd like to help." Inside the envelope was a check for $10,000. "Ma'am, I can't." "Yes, you can. This isn't charity, Mr. Pendleton. This is community. When my family came to America, we had nothing. No money, barely spoke English. But people helped us, gave us chances. Now we help others. It's how the world should work." Arthur's eyes burned. "Thank you. No, thank you. For showing my granddaughter that there's still good in this world. For showing my sons that ordinary people can be heroes." She stood. "Keep fighting, Mr. Pendleton. You're not alone." After she left, Arthur sat with the check in his hands, crying like a baby. Jace found him like that and just held him until the tears stopped. Friday morning, exactly 2 weeks after the first bikers had arrived, Arthur's farm was unrecognizable. The bunkhouse was finished, a solid structure with heating, plumbing, electricity, and enough beds for 30 men. The barn was pristine. The fields were prepped for spring planting. Security cameras covered every inch. And Arthur wasn't alone anymore. 23 men called his farm home. 23 brothers who'd chosen to stay to fight to build something worth protecting. Silas gathered everyone that evening. Tomorrow we make it official. We're filing papers with the state registering this location as the official headquarters of Hells Angels, Montana. That makes this property protected. Anyone messes with us, they mess with every charter in the country. The bikers cheered. But more than that, Silas continued, we're building something new here. A place where brothers can find work, find purpose, find family. Arthur's given us a chance. We're going to make it count. That night, they held a ceremony. Unofficial but powerful. Each biker stood before Arthur and pledged to protect the farm, to work the land, to honor the second chance they'd been given. When it was done, Silas handed Arthur something. A leather vest identical to the ones the bikers wore. But this one had a single patch, a skull with wings, and underneath one word, honorary. You're one of us now, Silas said. Official. Arthur put on the vest. It fit perfectly. And for the first time since Martha died, Arthur Pendleton felt like he belonged somewhere. Saturday morning arrived with unexpected silence. No inspectors, no corporate representatives, no sabotage attempts, just quiet. The kind of quiet that made Arthur nervous. Something's wrong, he said to Silas over breakfast. They wouldn't just give up. They didn't, Silas said, reading something on his phone. They pivoted, got an email from David Chen. Titan Development filed for bankruptcy protection yesterday afternoon. Arthur blinked. What does that mean? Means they're claiming they can't pay their debts, probably trying to reorganize, avoid the lawsuits. It's a legal trick, buys them time. So we didn't win. We didn't lose either. Bankruptcy means they can't touch you while the courts sort it out. Could take months, maybe years. Silas looked up. We got breathing room, Arthur. That's a win in my book. The breathing room felt fragile. Arthur spent the morning walking his property, checking fence lines, looking for damage that wasn't there. His body ached. 2 weeks of stress had taken their toll, but he couldn't stop moving. Jace found him near the back fence. You're gonna wear yourself out. I'm fine. You're not. You've barely slept, barely eaten. You keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Arthur leaned against the fence post. That's because it always does. My whole life, whenever things start looking up, something goes wrong. Martha gets sick. The tractor breaks. The bank calls. I can't let myself believe this is real. It's real. We're real. This farm is yours and it's staying yours. For how long? I'm 80 years old, Jace. I got maybe 10 years left if I'm lucky. What happens then? Jace was quiet for a moment. Then we keep it running. Honor your memory. Make sure everything you and Martha built doesn't disappear. Arthur's throat tightened. You'd do that in a heartbeat. That afternoon, cars started arriving. Not corporate vehicles, regular cars, trucks, beat-up sedans. People got out carrying covered dishes, tools, blankets. Families Arthur had never met. Sarah, the biker woman who'd organized the kitchen, appeared beside Arthur. Word got out about what you did in the storm, about the fight with Titan Development. People wanted to help. An elderly couple approached the man leaning on a cane. Mr. Pendleton, we're the Johnsons. We own the farm 3 miles south. Heard what you're going through, wanted to bring some supplies. You didn't have to. Yes, we did. Titan Development tried to buy our land too, threatened us when we said no. You standing up to them, that gives the rest of us courage. More people came. A young family brought vegetables from their greenhouse. A teenage boy offered to help with chores. An old woman handed Arthur a quilt she'd made, saying every home needed something warm. By evening, Arthur's farm looked like a community gathering. Kids played in the yard while adults talked, laughed, shared stories. The bikers mixed with the townspeople, naturally the leather and tattoos fading into background, as people realized they were just men trying to build something good. Arthur stood on his porch watching it all, overwhelmed. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned to find a woman about his age with white hair and Martha's kind eyes. You don't know me, she said, but I knew Martha. We were in book club together before she got sick. She talked about you all the time, about this farm, about your dreams. She did. She said you were the strongest man she'd ever known, that you'd survive anything because you never gave up. The woman smiled. She was right. She'd be so proud of you. Arthur couldn't speak. The woman squeezed his hand and walked away, leaving Arthur standing there with tears running down his face. Sunday brought another surprise. A film crew showed up, not news, but a documentary team from a streaming service. We heard about your story, the director said. Man saves bikers and storm bikers save his farm. It's incredible. We'd like to film it. I don't want to be on TV, Arthur said immediately. It wouldn't be about fame. It'd be about showing people that community still exists, that strangers can become family, that corporations don't always win. The director paused. We'd pay you, of course. Standard documentary rates. Silas pulled Arthur aside. This could be good. Gets your story out there. Makes it harder for Titan development to come after you quietly. Public attention is protection. Arthur didn't like it, but he understood the logic. How much filming? Few weeks, maybe a month. We'd interview you, the bikers people from town, document the farm work, the community you're building. And if I say no, we leave. No hard feelings. But Mr. Pendleton's stories like yours need to be told. They remind people what matters. Arthur looked at the bikers working on the fence line, at the families gathered in his yard, at the farm that had been dying and was now coming back to life. Okay, he said, but nothing fake, no staging. You film what's real or you don't film at all. Deal. The filming started Monday. Camera crews followed Arthur through his daily routine, feeding chickens, checking equipment, working alongside the bikers. At first, Arthur was self-conscious, aware of every movement, but the crew was professional, fading into the background until he forgot they were there. They interviewed him Tuesday afternoon. Arthur sat in his kitchen, the same chair he'd sat in with Martha for 47 years, and talked about the storm, the bikers, the fight to keep his farm. What made you go out into that blizzard? The director asked. Most people would have stayed inside. Arthur thought about it. Martha always said there's two kinds of people in this world. Those who see someone suffering and look away, and those who can't. I'm the kind who can't, never could. Drives me crazy sometimes, but that's who I am. Even for strangers, even for people most folks would call dangerous, especially for them. The dangerous ones, the broken ones, they're the ones who need help most. And sometimes when you help them, they help you back in ways you never expected. The interview lasted 3 hours. Arthur talked about Martha, about losing her, about the loneliness that had nearly killed him, about the moment Silas opened his eyes in the barn and Arthur realized he wasn't alone anymore. Wednesday, they filmed the bikers. Silas talked about growing up in an abusive home, running away, finding family in the MC. Jace talked about addiction, about hitting bottom, about the club giving him a reason to stay sober. Bear talked about losing his wife and son in a car accident, about the farm giving him purpose again. Every story was different. Every story was the same. Men who had been broken, finding a place to heal. Thursday morning brought news that shattered the fragile peace. David Chen called, his voice tight with anger. Rebecca Walsh is dead. Arthur's stomach dropped. What? Car accident last night. Single vehicle hit a tree at high speed. Police are calling it suspicious. Suspicious? How to? Brake lines were cut. Someone murdered her, Arthur. And Titan Development's lawyers are already spinning it, saying you and the bikers are responsible. That's insane. We were all here last night. You can verify. I know. I'm already working on alibis for everyone. But Arthur, this changes everything. Murder investigation means police scrutiny, media attention, everything we've been trying to avoid. The sheriff's department arrived within hours. Different sheriffs this time, homicide detectives with hard eyes and harder questions. Where were you last night between 10 p.m. and midnight? The lead detective asked Arthur. Here, in bed. I went to sleep around 9:30. Can anyone verify that Jace was in the house? He sleeps on my couch most nights, says he don't like being away from me in case something happens. They questioned Jace, then Silas, then every biker on the property. The interviews took hours, the detectives looking for holes, inconsistencies, anything that would give them probable cause. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. We got a problem, the detective said finally. Ms. Walsh filed a complaint 2 days before her death, Said she'd received death threats from bikers matching your descriptions. Bullshit, Silas said. We never threatened her. You got proof. Dugu, you because making accusations without evidence is slander detective. We got lawyers too. The standoff lasted until David Chen arrived with another lawyer, a criminal defense attorney from Billings, with a reputation for eating cops for breakfast. My clients are invoking their right to remain silent, the lawyer said. Unless you have evidence, actual evidence, not speculation, you need to leave. The detectives left, but the damage was done. By evening, news vans lined the road outside Arthur's property. Reporters shouted questions over the fence. Helicopters circled overhead. Biker gang suspected in corporate executive's murder ran the headline on every news site. Arthur sat in his kitchen, head in his hands, while the world he'd rebuilt crumbled again. We should leave, Silas said quietly, before this destroys you too. No, Arthur said, you're not leaving. Arthur, you don't understand. They're going to come after you through us. Your farm, your reputation, everything. If we're gone, then I'm alone again, Arthur interrupted. And I'm not doing that. I'm not going back to being alone in this house waiting to die. You boys gave me a reason to keep living. I'm not throwing that away because some corporate bastards are trying to frame us for murder. This could get ugly. It's already ugly, but we didn't do this and the truth will come out. The truth started coming out Friday morning. Deputy Chen called with an update. We got camera footage from a gas station near where Walsh died. Shows her car and shows another car following her. We're running the plates. And it's registered to a Titan Development employee, mid-level manager named Richard Voss. Same Richard Voss who visited your farm trying to buy you out. Arthur remembered the man. Suit, briefcase, smug smile. Why would he kill his own boss? Working theory, Walsh was going to testify against the company to save herself. Someone higher up wanted her silenced. We're bringing Voss in for questioning. The news broke that evening. New suspect in Walsh murder, corporate insider arrested. The cameras shifted from Arthur's farm to Titan Development headquarters in Denver. Voss talked, gave up everything. Walsh hadn't been killed by bikers, she'd been killed by her own company to prevent her testimony. The order had come from Titan Development's CEO himself. By Saturday, the CEO was in custody. By Sunday, Titan Development's board voted to dissolve the company entirely. And by Monday, every lawsuit against Arthur was dropped. It was over, actually over. The documentary crew caught it all. Arthur's face when he got the news. The bikers cheering. The moment Arthur collapsed on his porch, overwhelmed by relief so intense it felt like drowning. Jace was there, pulling Arthur into his arms. It's done, old man. It's really done. Arthur cried into Jace's shoulder, great heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken inside him. 60 years of fighting, of struggling, of barely surviving it all poured out at once. When he finally pulled it away, every biker on the property was watching. Not judging, understanding. Because they'd all been there. They'd all broken down. They'd all needed someone to catch them. Thank you, Arthur managed. All of you, thank you. Spring came early that year. By late March, Arthur's fields were planted wheat, barley, vegetables. The bikers worked alongside Arthur, learning farming from a man who'd done it his whole life. The documentary premiered in May. Second Chances, the Arthur Pendleton story, became a streaming sensation. Millions watched. An 80-year-old farmer and 19 bikers prove that family isn't about blood, it's about showing up when someone needs you. The fame was uncomfortable. Arthur did a few interviews, always deflecting credit to the bikers, to the community, to anyone but himself. But the attention brought opportunities. Donations poured in. People sent money, equipment, seeds, livestock. A tractor company donated a brand new harvester. A solar company installed panels for free. Within 6 months, Arthur's farm wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. More importantly, people started showing up. Lost souls, broken people, men and women looking for second chances. The bikers vetted them carefully, but those who were genuine found a place. By summer, 30 people lived on Arthur's farm. By fall, 50. The bunkhouse expanded, new structures went up. What had been a dying farm became a community, a place where people who'd lost everything could find something worth fighting for. Arthur's 81st birthday fell in October. The bikers threw him a party, hundreds of people, music, food, laughter. Lily Chen, now 7, presented Arthur with a drawing she'd made. It showed Arthur surrounded by bikers, the farm in the background, and at the top, written in crayon, "My hero." Arthur hung it on his refrigerator next to a photo of Martha. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Arthur sat on his porch with Silas and Jace. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. The silence between them was comfortable, earned through shared struggle and survival. "You ever think about what comes next?" Silas asked eventually. "Every day," Arthur admitted. "I'm 81. I'm living on borrowed time." "We all are," Jace said. "That's what makes it precious." "When I die," Arthur said carefully, "I want this place to continue. Want it to stay what it's become, a home for people who need one." "Already planning on it," Silas said. "We've been talking to lawyers, setting up a trust. The farm stays in your name while you're alive, then transfers to the MC. We keep it running as a community just like now." Arthur nodded, satisfied. Martha would like that. Winter came again. 1 year since the storm that had changed everything. The bikers held a memorial service for Tank, burying him properly in a corner of Arthur's property with a view of the mountains. Arthur said the prayer same as before, but this time surrounded by family. In February, Arthur got sick. Nothing serious at first, just a cold, the bikers thought. But it lingered, got worse. By March, he was in the hospital with pneumonia. The bikers took shifts staying with him. Someone was always there holding his hand, reading to him, making sure he wasn't alone. Jace was there the night Arthur woke up, confused, thinking he was young again, calling for Martha. "She's not here, Arthur," Jace said gently. "But I am. We all are." Arthur's eyes focused. "Jace?" "Yeah, it's me. I'm dying, aren't you, not I?" Jace's throat closed. He couldn't lie. "Yeah, old man, I think so." Arthur nodded, accepting. "Okay, that's okay. I'm tired, Jace. So tired." "I know. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. The farm, the people there. Promise me you'll take care of them. All of them. The broken ones, the lost ones. Promise me you'll keep giving people second chances." "I promise." "And Jace, thank you for that night in the storm, for everything after. You gave me a family when I thought I'd lost mine forever." Jace couldn't speak. He just held Arthur's hand and cried. Arthur died 3 days later, peacefully surrounded by the bikers who'd become his sons. He was 81 years old, and he'd lived 6 months longer than doctors predicted, powered by sheer stubbornness and love. They buried him next to Martha on the hill overlooking the farm. 500 bikers came to the funeral. So did townspeople, families Arthur had helped, strangers whose lives had been touched by his story. Deputy Chen gave a eulogy. So did David Chen. So did Margaret Chen, the restaurant owner who'd given Arthur money when he needed it most. But it was Jace who spoke last. "Arthur Pendleton was the best man I ever knew," Jace said, his voice breaking. "He saved my life. Not just that night in the storm, but every day after. He showed me what it means to be good, to be brave, to be family. He showed all of us." Jace looked at the gathered crowd. Arthur's gone, but what he built, this community, this family, it lives on. We're his legacy. Every person we help, every second chance we give, every lost soul we bring home, that's Arthur. That's what he wanted. That's what we're going to do. The farm continued. The community grew. The documentary sparked a movement, other farms, other communities, other places where broken people could find healing. 10 years later, there were 12 farms across 6 states, all modeled on Arthur's original, all run by bikers and volunteers, all dedicated to giving people second chances. Jace ran Arthur's farm until the day he died 50 years later. Surrounded by 3 generations of people Arthur's kindness had touched. The farm never stopped, never closed, never turned away anyone who genuinely needed help. And on the hill overlooking the fields, 2 graves sat side by side, Arthur and Martha Pendleton. The headstone read, "They gave everything. They received everything. They prove that family is what you build, not what you're born into." Every year on the anniversary of the storm, bikers from across the country rode to Arthur's farm. They gathered at his grave, shared stories, remembered the old man who'd saved them all. Because Arthur Pendleton had done more than save 19 men in a blizzard. He'd shown everyone that one act of kindness could change the world, that ordinary people could be heroes, that it's never too late for a second chance. And in the end, that's the only legacy that matters.